Productive Dentist Academy podcast network.
Patients aren't just deciding on treatment, saying yes or no, but they are actually deciding, is this the place for me? Do they feel understood? Are they confident with the outcome?
Thanks for tuning into the Everyday Practices Dental Podcast. I'm Reagan Robertson. My co-host Sarah Hansen and I interview real dentists and experts who grow their dental practices using authentic marketing in a way that you can remember, repeat, and use in your own practice to get the patients you deserve. Let's dive in. Sarah, in hindsight, you were married. We were both married
Yes.
women. And during our dating days, it was for me, it was definitely seductive to want to put forward, obviously, my best foot first and show the best of myself and maybe not be fully authentic. Like you get a few dates in before you start to like release the weird, like I'm a really big
Right.
Star Trek nerd. Like you kind of hide it. And I think in dentistry, it's actually kind of the same way. Like, it can be really difficult to be truly authentically ourselves because we wanna impress people. We want people to feel like, we have the expertise, and has that been similar for you, Sarah, in your life in
Yes.
dentistry?
Yes. I think our doctors are so highly educated and they are master clinicians. And sometimes I think, they forget that really our patients don't know all the clinical parts, right? And so, really, what they're looking for is someone they can trust, someone that they know has their best interest, and really someone that listens to them.
Yeah. The guest that we have today for us, listeners, I know. We
He's
always say
amazing.
it's what's really amazing. It's Dr. Jonathan Ehlers. He is out of Sedalia, and he's celebrated, acclimated up the wazoo, 1% diamond producer for Invisalign. Go to
Yep.
tigerfamilydental.com right now. Just go ahead and pull it up on your phone and take a look while you're listening to this today. I know that Sarah and I haven't really met much more of an authentic dentist. And it doesn't mean that life doesn't happen and he doesn't have to navigate some really big challenges in a really big practice, but mindset has a lot to deal with it and being comfortable with one's self is important as well. So, John, we would love to welcome you to Everyday Practices today.
It's a
Welcome.
privilege to be here, and we go way back, so I know you all well, but at the same time, it's been a while since we've talked. So,
Yeah.
whenever I got the call to jump on with you guys, I'm like, absolutely, just because I want to see what's going on in your life. So, pleasure to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I went and I reacclimated myself. I went to your website, looked at your Google reviews to kind of see what was up with John's world, and listeners, John's here today because we really want to talk about the patient treatment and conversation specifically from the doctor's point of view. And John, we've asked you to be here today. One, because the very first time I met you, you have a very relaxed demeanor about you. Like the mindset that I've seen you have is things will come up and we will navigate through them together. And you have over 1,600 five-star Google reviews. And as I read through, it took me a while to scroll just to get through the ones from this past month. So I don't know what you're doing on the review front, but it's obviously working really, really well. And I look for like patterns and some of the words that came up over and over and over again was friendly and knowledgeable, amazing, compassionate, really took care of my anxiety. Like I wouldn't go anywhere else. There were a lot of recurring themes. And I humbly believe that, how you show up in your reviews is how the practice is, and that comes directly from the leadership. Could you share, so everyone kind of can be in your shoes and kind of be our ears and eyes, your philosophy and how you got into dentistry and really where you got this mindset from of kind of being comfortable in your own skin to show up authentically?
I think the first thing is a lot of this is how I grew up. I had two parents that instilled confidence in me, and but also gave the realistic version of life is that there are going to be times when you struggle. There are going to be times when you may not have an answer that day, but if you're true to yourself, if you're a humble person that has grace towards others, then I think you can approach things and make it to where it's not just a transactional relationship. It's more like, we're approaching this as basically as a a team together. And then so that's kind of just led me through my whole life, whether it's friendships, whether it's playing on a sports team. I played college athletics. I think that also shaped me in a way. And then also my practice, navigating relationships with my staff, and then also patients. Like all that together, it's really just an approach of let's do this life together. Let's figure things out. Not be too quick to judge, not be too quick to, make a decision. So, and then I think so that was the first part of just kind of like how I approach things. But as far as like the practice, I think when we go back to the reviews that we have, you can pay a service $250 a month for to generate reviews, but that doesn't tell the whole picture. The review happens when the patient leaves the door, and they're like, "Wow, that was a little bit different than I'm used to with experiencing dentist or healthcare in general." And then you get the prompt that says, "Hey, would you mind talking about Dr. John or talking about the assistants or
Mhm.
the front desk?" And so when the patient can walk in and see a front desk member that is smiling and willing to help them, from an assistant that greets them with a smile, that truly appears happy to be there that day. Like I feel like that's another thing on our reviews. It happens not all the time, but fairly often where they'll say, "Everyone there seems to truly enjoy their job," and that makes me so happy because like that is the organic presence that we try to portray to our patients because like if all this whole team of 18, 20 people truly love working together, I think they're also going to push that onto the patients and give them that awesome experience. So it
Mhm.
starts with having a culture in your office of welcoming, listening, and then the patients just kind of fall into that and they want to be a part of
I love that. So we know patients aren't just, buying dentistry, right? But they're really tapping into trust and certainty, and that definitely shows up within your culture and what you do. But I'm wondering, can you give doctors any tips about when you're presenting, because we know that you work with Yomi for implants, you do a lot of full arch cases. How do you build belief, not just explaining the procedure, but how do you get the buy-in and the trust from those patients with those big cases?
I mean, a lot of it I think it can be pretty simple in terms of, you know, turn around, look the patient in the eye, get on their level, like touch them on the shoulder, say, well, thank you so much for being in our practice today. And then when you're discussing the procedure, don't say, we're going to extract all your teeth, we're going to mow your bone down, we're going to like do all this, or like,
Did doctors say
you,
we're gonna mow your bow down? Like, that would
I
be
really hope
wow.
not. Really? Well, well, they will say, "We're gonna place 6 osteotomies into your upper arch, and we're going
Yeah.
to," it's
Yeah.
like,
The
you don't talk to
technical
like this.
terms.
You
Patients are like,
say,
"What?"
yeah. The and really, like, the patient's not there for implants, they're there for teeth.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm,
I talk to them
mhm,
about what what are your goals? When this whole
mhm,
process is over, what do you look forward to? And they say, "Wow, man, I would love to eat a steak and not worry about my teeth breaking or my dentures moving around." I'm like, "Okay, well, you know what? This is our solution. We have a way to place implants and build you an arch of teeth that don't move. They're screwed in
mm.
place, they never come out, and you're going to have the confidence to eat whatever you want. And then you're also going to have the confidence to smile. How long has it been since you smiled?" And believe it or not, you have grown men that get teary eyed whenever we have that conversation.
I knew you were going
And
to say that. I've seen that happen in real life, and it is because it's a
yeah,
real shock. It's one of those moments where you realize what you've been carrying is so heavy and you haven't been able to do some simple joys in life. Like, that's a big
absolutely.
weight to carry.
Yep.
It is. And because, like, like I live in a rural farming community in central Missouri, and men aren't supposed to be emotional. And
Mhm.
so I think honestly what that does is it puts an even greater burden on them psychologically, because like and they can't sometimes they can't even talk to their wives about it, you know?
Yeah.
And so I'm there, and back to making the patient feel comfortable, Sarah, I'm there, and one of the things I always say too is, "Hey, there's no judgment in our office. What me and my assistant, my team are here to do is find what bothers you and find a solution and be part of that solution for you, not part of the judgment, not part of the past where there's trauma there, but be part of the solution to where you can be proud of the teeth you have, and that kind of like I feel like that opens up a door in their mind where they're like, okay, I trust this guy, and now that I mean the console can go long at that point because it's not about their teeth anymore. It's about all the other things that have happened, but that's okay. Like when a patient
Yeah.
is going to invest that kind of money in you and your practice, I think they're worth giving them the time to listen to them, and that all builds trust. That way, by the end of that consult, when we really connect, the patient's like, I don't even care what the money is. Like, we're going to make that work. And you have your
Ah.
practice has to have tools to make that work. But money aside, they're ready to go because they trust us. They want us to help them.
Gal, I feel like there's this invisible gap between what a dentist is presenting and telling the patient what they need and what your patients are actually processing. And I love that you kind of take the dentistry out of it and you say, hey, let's have a conversation. What is important to you? You really listen to them. So I'm curious, do you think that patients care more or make decisions based on logic or emotion? What have you seen?
Yeah, it's emotion 100%.
Yeah.
And that's also why I think when you have a patient that's ready to go emotionally, you
Yeah.
have to you have to take all the curbs out of that process. Like you have to, from the moment you get them to say, yes, I'm ready to do this for me, you got to get all those roadblocks out of the way, like
Yeah.
financing, scheduling concerns, all those things. Like that's when the practice infrastructure has to come in and say, we've solved for all these other problems because it is emotional. And if you say,
Mhm.
well, we'll figure it out in a couple of weeks, in 2 to 3 weeks, that emotion has now fallen back. They've
Oh boy.
forgotten how good they felt for that moment in time, to where
Yeah.
it's like, you know what? I'm not doing it. I lost it. I'm not comfortable with it. And so you do have to work on that emotion.
You said, John, a little bit earlier, we do life together. And Sarah and I are particularly passionate about the micro intersections. And I know you've been to the PDA conferences and heard that and watched all the little micro interactions that patients have before they even get to your chair. The website being one of them, maybe a referral, maybe a phone call in the waiting room, all of those little pieces. And what's really interesting to me in saying that, it's almost like a core tenet, if you will, of we do life together because life happens and it's not always positive. And sometimes you're having to juggle family sicknesses or your car breaks down or, something happens like that. But again, going back to the reviews and looking at that, to see friendly and knowledgeable so many times over and over and over again, like it was kind of ridiculous. It tells me that they're a happy team. Like nobody can just fake being friendly. uh, I'm I'm curious what you pour into your team and what you've done, from the culture side to actually be able to create an environment that is joyful and that does have people who genuinely like I think I would be the envy. That would be the envy of many dental practices today who are struggling with staff. What is it that you're doing to kind of help bring your team along in your beliefs and creating that culture that I mean you deserve and your patients deserve for sure, but that's hard won in my opinion.
Yeah. I think, I mean, getting real transparent, we didn't always have it in my practice, and so
You're not
there was a
perfect?
time.
What?
I disagree.
I
Well,
actually was
I
kind of
think,
thinking you were gonna say, "Well, I've kinda always been that way, I had the great home life growing up, and it's just I'm just lucky." But that's good. That's you actually, you had to go through it. That's great.
well, I think it's a good story for dentists and the dentists that are listening to this. I think it's if you're at that point where you're like, man, my culture sucks. Like I've got hygienists like bickering. I'm sorry, you can edit that out. Um, I have hygienists bickering over here. I have assistants complaining because their team members not picking up the slack. I've got front office complaining about nowhere to put patients in the schedule, and those are all, I think with my practice, we started super small. It was a startup. We had 3 operatories, we had 3 employees, and it was beautiful. I mean, it was amazing. But as we scale a practice, you add team members, you add personalities, and it gets really tough. And so
Mhm.
that's where we were at. It was 2021, 2022, and maybe before that. Anyway, it we were at a point where I could tell like the culture was really starting to crumble. And
Mm.
so we made some changes with office managers. And really, it's a testament to, I think, me saying, let's find a solution, but then also my office manager finding the right people in management positions within your practice. Because at the end of the day, we as dentists, we have to produce for our practice, and you have to delegate certain things to other people. And so finding an office manager like myself with Holly,
Mhm.
she's amazing at personal relationships. She has a relationship with every staff member in our office, and like this is Holly to a T. So she is currently on vacation right now, but Thursday she left a box with 2 or 3 boxes of candy, and made sure to write a note to me and says, "Do not forget to give the staff candy on Thursday before we go into Easter
Oh.
weekend."
Oh.
And she's on vacation, she's on the beach, and sure enough, first thing Thursday morning, Holly texts me and says, "Don't forget to give the staff candy." And I think that's a very small token, but what it shows the staff is that we do really care about them. It's
Yeah.
like staff has sick kids. Okay, let's figure out. And again, this is just life. Life happens. We had 2 staff,
Right.
and we had 5 inches of rain overnight 2 nights ago. The next day, 2 of our staff members, their basements are completely flooded. So we figured out a way to pass some of those patients, one of our hygienists, on to someone else. Other hygienists stepped up and said, "We're going to see 2 patients this hour." Someone else said, "We're going to see 2 patients that hour." It's like, it's things like that. It's when we have leaders in the practice that are willing to go the extra step.
Mm.
Now all of a sudden we're
Mhm.
seeing team members go the extra step to help
Yep.
others, and
Yeah.
it snowballs. And
Yeah.
so I know I'm long-winded on that, but
No.
it's
It's
great.
very good.
No, what I love that you're talking about is, again, it starts with you, right? As the leader of the practice, you wanted to establish specific values, feelings, emotions, a culture, and you took that on. You now have given that to your team to take on. And then what happens? It's a ripple effect. And that is what your patients feel. And that's the relationship that you're cultivating, not only with your team, but every patient. And I remember, Dr. John, you and I had a conversation. We were talking about different things. And one of the things you said to me is, um, we were having a conversation that we were discussing numbers and some, kind of what some doctors would consider confidential information. And I asked you, I said, "Hey, do you want Holly to be a part of that?" And you said to me, "Yes. I trust her with everything. She's always involved. I appreciate her. We trust each other. We have a good working relationship." And I thought that was really special because, again, you have given her the gift of, this relationship and the trusting atmosphere, and then risen with her as a leader too, where now she can carry that on with other team members and stuff like that. And again, that ripple effect is so powerful. So tell me about how that now has kind of rippled into your patients when they come in, because we know relationships are big. So what does it mean for your team to have a relationship with those patients?
Yeah, and so we treat patients that come in, when they're establishing, it's not, like I said, it's not so transactional. When they come in for
Mhm.
the full exam, they've touched, 4 or 5 of our staff members, and then obviously the doctor as well. And so we try to remember those things. We make little
Mhm.
notes in the charts that says, this is their employment, or these are their kids. This is what their kids do. These
Mhm.
are hobbies that the patient has. And it's little things that I think that we try to just remember. That way we can bring that up. And again, like it's it's so s- it's so little things you can do like that. But patients,
Mhm.
they remember that, and like
Yep.
I can't believe that they remembered that this was my hobby and we were going to this thing, and so all my team members, they value that.
Yeah.
And I think they're excited to witness that. And it's so cool. And I think it's part again, it's a testament of how we value those relationships. But we take a patient photo when they first come into the practice, and so we always do this. Like when the pa it's we have some patients now. The practice was started in 2016, so we're coming up on 10 years. So we
Congratulations.
have some of
Yeah.
those. Yeah, it's crazy. I cannot believe the practice is that old, but we have those photos of these kids when they were 5, 6 years old, and now they're 16 years old. And every once in a while, we'll just pull up that initial photo of the patient and say, "This is how we see you because like this is how we remember when you first come
Yeah.
in, and now
Yeah.
look at all the life you've gotten to have, and all the moments you've shared with us, and that's the I remember my mentor, he said that's the coolest part of dentistry is seeing these kids grow up and see them get old enough that they have kids, and like you have this like generational relationship with these
Mhm.
people.
Mhm.
And like when I started seeing that at this 10-year mark, it's like, holy cow, it's really cool to see that and see what happens in their lives. They go on to be dentists, or they go on to be physicians, or it's
Yeah.
just that's really neat. But that's also, it has to be organic. You can't fake that stuff, So like
Mhm.
if you're a dentist that's struggling with that, I think you just got to take a step back and say, why am I doing this?
Mm.
If it's for production or to check a box in your day, yeah, it's just that's not how true dentistry, successful dentistry works. It's about you have a relationship with patients and be active in their lives. And if you do that, you're going to have a robust practice because patients want to come back and
Mhm.
share those things to someone that's willing to listen. So,
Yeah, Reagan, I'm like, "Cole, I wanna be a patient." I'm like, hearing you
Well,
talk
yeah, I
about your patients and how much you care about them, I'm like, "I want that."
Yeah, all I could think of was those patients will be with you for life, and I
Yes.
I had my optometrist from when I was, I think, 8 or 9 years old until just a couple of years ago when he finally retired, and I tell you, John, I clung to him, and I was like, I don't and his daughter is an optometrist, she took over the practice and they brought in a
oh,
partner.
cool.
I ended up getting the partner, and I was so skeptical, I felt like a little rural town old biddy. I was like, "I don't know who you are, we'll see how it goes."
Yeah.
She's amazing, and why wouldn't she be amazing? I had an amazing optometrist, but you do life with that person. You really do get to know them.
Mhm.
It's wonderful when things are working well, and I wanna paint a scene, for everyone listening right now. John, you've purchased big equipment. You brought in a Yomi really early on. You've upgraded that building. Did you build one from scratch? I can't remember if you built it up from scratch or not, but you have a gorgeous
We did.
facility.
Yeah.
You
Then
took
he expanded, yeah.
yeah, you took
Yeah.
Yeah.
financial risks. And so, how do you think these little micro moments of showing up, caring, and remembering those details, how have they been affected over the years in relation to you taking on bigger and bigger risks? Because I find personally it's hard to be vulnerable and authentic when numbers get tight. Like, when things are going great, it's easy because you're happy things are going well, but when things are, you have a risk in front of you or they're not going as planned, it can be more difficult to re you know, focus in on those little moments. Do you have any tricks that you deploy yourself, when things are hard?
Well, uh, things will always come up. Things will always be hard, but you have to, I think and this goes back to having analytics within your practice, measuring things, having a track record of success. Before I before I even, purchased Yomi, or I decided to build on the practice or build the larger facility, there was a track record of, okay, we're having 100 to 150 new patients a month, and that's predictable. So I think you can't do this dentistry thing on a whim. Like, you have to have analysis, you have to have data that supports it. And so with my practice, that's how we did it. Because yeah, you're right. You never want to be in a situation where you're like, man, I really need this patient to say yes to this treatment because if they don't, I can't pay for Yomi this month. Like
Mhm.
that is that is absolutely the wrong way to approach it. It's more like you do the analysis, you have the data in front of you to where you know that if you treat patients with respect, if you listen to them, you provide them plenty of avenues for saying yes to treatment, then everything else will get taken care of. So again, that's not blind faith though. It's saying that I have the data to support that because it is not failed me yet. And so that's how I approach it. You never want finances or this big dream to get in between you and your patient whenever you're making treatment recommendations. That's a slippery slope that gets into ethics that I think no one wants to be a part of.
You said
Yeah,
earlier.
so
Oh, go ahead, Sarah.
well, I was just wondering because I've heard so many doctors over the last 6 months or so say, "I'm having a harder time closing," or, having my patients say yes to a 10,000, 20,000, $30,000 treatment plan. So, what do you think's going through their head, and what recommendations would you give doctors that, are seeing a little bit of a downshift with that? We know that times get hard for patients, and it's not that they don't believe in the treatment, but, they're not always saying yes. So, what recommendations would you give talking about, finances and that sort of thing so that a patient can get the care that they deserve?
Well, I think a lot of it is it's you try to put it into like their perspective. Like I
Yeah.
whenever like I'll bring it up, a farmer comes in and he's drives in with a brand new pickup truck, and so I kind of say it half-heartedly, but I'm like, just think of this as another pickup truck, but that allows you to eat healthy foods. Like instead of
Mhm.
investing in stuff, you're investing in your health, which I mean, who wouldn't put that as a priority? And so you
Right.
almost like for me, I try to put it back on the patient. It says you came here for a reason. Like there's a reason why you called us. There's a reason why you walked
Mhm.
through that door. It's because deep down, you know that you need this. Like
Yeah.
it's not okay to brush your teeth and your mouth full of blood. Or it's not okay to worry about eating something that's going to break off another tooth. It's
Mhm.
not okay that you have blood sugar in the 300s because your oral health is so poor. And so, like, I think you list all those basically just statistics of them because you can see it. Like yeah, they have a medical med list of 10 medications because of the diabetes or hypertension.
Right.
And so you find a way to say like, yes, this is an investment, but this isn't. You don't have a choice. It's either this or you're continuing down this path of poor health and systemic conditions. And so
Mhm.
that's why I always bring up the pickup truck because I'm like, there's a part of you that was okay to buy that truck to make those payments. And so what we're saying is this is a really important deal. And so you need to make that decision. And so not to shame them, not to do anything like that, but basically just
Right.
try to put life in perspective for them that says, you know, if there's anything worth investing in right now, it's your health. And it starts at your mouth. So that's kind of that's how I frame that. But then also, it's yeah, life's like things are gonna happen in terms of the economy or a global conflict. Like these are things
Yep.
you can't avoid. But that's when relations it comes back to relationships because if they're just a patient that you had a paid Google ad, they come to your practice, there's no relationship there. And
Mhm.
don't get me wrong, we use those things because you have to get them in the door, but
Right.
you have to form the relationship because otherwise they'll be very quick to say, not today. I'll do that next year whenever something happens. So,
John, I love everything that you're saying, and especially I can see you in the chair and holding those conversations. What uh like, what is your rhythm with your team to infuse your values and let them know the why behind what you do and then what Tiger Family Dental overall is doing? Is it like a once a month meeting? Is it team training? Is it a retreat? Like, what is your cadence every year?
So we have I can get really into the weeds. We have morning huddles. We have a weekly team meeting. We do at least quarterly, we'll have family dinners, we call them, or family picnics, and it's just ways that the team just gets together and we share how things are going. And this is something we started doing too, which is kind of cool. We have these sheets where the staff member will say, this is a and we do it from the previous week. So they'll say, this is a win for me from the previous week. Whether it's, I got all my follow-up calls, or I had a really scared patient that said they hated the dentist and they end up scheduling all their treatment because they loved us. And then the next was something that I'm going to work on. There's another section that says, this is something that I'm going to do to improve myself over the next year, whether it's CE or a hygienist getting laser certified, things like that. So um, and that's that's my favorite part of the week when we go through those like wins and things are going to work on. Like we all laugh. It was fun. We had bingo night last week, which was
I
so
love
fun.
bingo.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah, it was so cool. Like we right after work, we all just sat down and Holly pulled up the board and we had bingo. And it was such a easy, simple thing, but those little things like where you can laugh with your team after work is it's very profound. It really is.
I I think that makes such a difference within even the vibe of the office, right? And what patients feel as they walk in. So, can you walk us through a patient's perspective? I want you to put yourself in the new patient, um, you know, situation right now. What, as a patient, what would they experience as they're walking through your office, through maybe some of the different touch points that your team has really learned to handle well?
Yeah. So right when they walk in the front door, it's a direct vision to either Sarah or Jen. They're our front desk team,
Hmm.
and they greet 'em with a smile. In fact, they may even yell at them before they even fully get in the door. Hey, welcome, come on in. And they get their paperwork. And so it's a touch point of a smiling greeting before they even say a word. Like we don't want the patient to just walk in and have to get in line and wait for something. Like when
Yeah.
they first walk in, it's like, oh my goodness, thank you so much for coming here. And so they get their paperwork filled out, and then we'll have typically for new patients, our hygienist will greet them. So the hygienist will walk in and welcome them, take them back to their chair, and then it's just like a set of questions. It's like, what's your dental history like? What are some things in your dental past that you don't like? Um, what can we do and remember that we never do that again for you? Like what are the things that
Oh, I
that we because
love
we don't want to
that.
repeat bad experiences. And
Yes.
so that starts triggering answers to where then we can note those things down. And I see that, oh, this patient cannot get numb. Okay, well, I got to make sure that if we ever do treatment on them, they are getting numb. Or I'll even bring it up to them when I come in the room. I say, I hear you have some anxiety with feeling things during your dental treatments. And so I'm like, I will tell you, we will do everything we can to make this comfortable. And you always have the stop sign. If I'm ever doing anything uncomfortable or it's hurting, just know you can stop me. And just like even just giving that little bit of relief, like like it's almost like they just like their tension just drops. And
Yeah.
so, but yeah, the hygienist will go through all that. They'll break down, what they're seeing in their mouth, and at the end of that, if it's, we do wellness scans in the practice now too. So we have a scanning person. She's actually super bright. She's going to go to dental school in the fall. Um, and so that's another touch point. So she gets to introduce herself. I think the more
Yeah.
people that can even just stop in for 10 seconds and say, "Oh, hey, welcome. Your wife came last week. Thanks for coming." Like little things like that. Um,
Yeah.
because even just that little comment, "Hey, we saw your wife last week." Now they're saying, "Oh my gosh, they remember my wife."
Yep.
So it's not just, get them in, get them out type thing.
It's so counterintuitive at time, and I think, not everyone is extroverted or naturally relaxed or even actually has that caring instinct in them. I mean, I don't mean to be harsh by saying that, but there are people who just wanna get in and do dentistry and be done with it, and these are the intangibles that really make the biggest difference of all. I remember shout out
Mhm.
to my hygienist, Michael, who I don't even know how many episodes I've shouted this man out. Uh, I the first time I met him, I remember him asking me if my teeth were sensitive. And I was surprised because I hadn't been asked that before, even though I do have sensitive teeth. And he said, "Great, I just have this gel that I put on before I begin my, cleaning with you, and it helps lessen the sensitivity." I felt cared for like in that moment.
Yeah.
And since my time meeting him to now, one, I will do anything he says. And two, it's for two reasons though. One, he's super clinically gifted. He's gone to Kois. He's a wonderful hygienist. So clinically he's great. But the other, this is the part. This is like the emotion, John, I think, that flips it over. He remembers everything. Like he knows my music preference. He knows if I'm going on trips. He knows about my family. He knows every little detail and he goes above and beyond. Like he really seems to care about my overall health, not just what's in my mouth, and that is
Mhm.
probably, like, the hill I will stand on forever is, your mouth is your gateway, and it really informs all of your health, and he makes me feel that way. I think it's phenomenal what you are doing and what you've helped cultivate within your team so that everybody works together to help that person feel cared for like you're doing life with them.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I had the thought when you were talking about, getting to know them and even asking them, maybe some negative experiences or things that they haven't liked. I often think there are probably a lot of dentists that unintentionally break trust, not because they don't want to have a relationship or things like that, but they just simply haven't maybe taken more time with the patient. So, my question to you is, we know dental practices are chaotic and crazy, and there are a lot of things happening. And really, time is probably the thing that we need most, and yet we don't seem to have enough of it. So we know that creating these great patient experiences, creating trust, having them be lifelong loyal patients, saying yes to $30,000 treatment plans come from that relationship. But what do you do when you don't have time to, or what you don't feel like is time to spend with them to create that?
Yeah, it is challenging. There are times in the day where we have 5 hygiene checks an hour. If I have, my associate may not be there that
Oh,
day,
you're
and then
hopping.
that's not the treatment that I'm doing. But
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
always I try to check a couple boxes with every interaction with the patient. Even if it's someone that I've seen them for 5 years and I know nothing is going on,
Hmm.
I will make a comment about recent events. I'll make a comment about family life. And then I always will say, "Are there any concerns or questions you have for me today?" And that really can take 40 seconds. But
Hmm.
I feel like in the patient's mind, that still gets them back home where the reason why they're here is that Dr. John cares about them. And so little things like that, it doesn't take a lot of time, but it's just like another thing that says, Dr. John asked me, because they always commented, they're like, "Man, I couldn't even find a parking place. How do you have time to even say hi to me?" And so patients see it,
Yeah.
but at the same so that also breeds trust though too. When they see a parking lot full of patients and they know you're running around like crazy, but you still have time to ask a couple
Yeah.
pointed questions, and so it's things like that. And that's not really tricking patients. It's just saying, like, I want to know, how's your family doing? Your kids started college this year. How are they doing? And it doesn't take long, but you have
Yeah.
to do that. That's part of it. And if you can't find a way to navigate that in a timely process, and you're gonna have to adjust your schedule in a way, because like
Mhm.
you can't just build this very, very busy schedule and then pull back on the things that got you there. It's like you don't want to be that, because that's just like this corporate, you know, feel of patients will leave at the easiest turn, they will leave your practice and go somewhere else because they've just given up on that relationship.
I think one of the biggest takeaways that I've gotten from today's conversation from you is patients aren't just deciding on treatment, saying yes or no, right? But they are actually deciding, is this the place for me? Do they feel understood? Are they confident with the outcome? And I think when those things are missing, that's where that hesitation comes in. And so Reagan, going back to our dating, right? That's really those patients are dating in a way. They're figuring out if you're the right practice for them. Do we have a good relationship? Are you going to listen to me when I say that I am afraid? Are you going to be patient, or are you going to be frustrated? So again, I think improving case acceptance, growing your practice, really attracting the patients that you want, is going back to everything you said today, is really all about relationship. Because when those patients feel certain, they feel seen, they feel heard, they establish trust, that decision really never becomes a decision for them anymore. It now becomes, yes, what do I need to do? Whatever you say, whatever your recommendations are. And that really is that relationship that dentists and their teams are looking for with patients, but that's what patients want too.
Absolutely. Yeah. We live in a world where we have information at our fingertips. And so
Yeah.
it's like what I've seen more is like you said, patients they wouldn't really be in your office if they didn't know that you could do the treatment. So like that's kind of that box is already checked. So now you're winning them on, do I want this guy to do the treatment on me? Do I want to invest the money in him, in his team? And so, yeah, like I'm no longer trying to validate my skill set. I'm trying to validate that I'm worthy of their investment. I'm worthy of them opening themselves up to me and being vulnerable to let me fix them.
Yeah.
So, like that's where the sales comes in. It's not you're not selling that, oh, I went to so and so, CE education. I've done all these internships. Like yeah, that's okay. I mean, I get it. You need to have it on the wall. You need to have it on your website when the patient's looking. But when the patient's in your chair, you're not that's not what they care. They care about, is this guy gonna care for me? Is he not gonna hurt me? Is he gonna be, like that. So yeah, that's where I feel like really separates the ability to close a case versus not close a case.
Yeah.
As we wrap up, John, I love how you've really demonstrated emotional safety and what it means to have emotional safety so that people are willing to be vulnerable and open up and really explain to you what their goals are so you can get them there. How about your own healthcare team? Do you see that showing up in your own healthcare team as you take care of yourself? Do they embody the same values that you put in your practice?
Oh man. It's a challenge of rural living. I don't, you don't have that type of choices in a way. It's like this is the family practice office in my town, and I go to them, and that's how it is. Um, so it's and I think not to talk badly about medicine, but I feel like medicine in a way is they have some growth to do in this realm. It's they're more analytical. It's and God bless them. I mean, we complain about our schedule like like a family practice office. Holy cow! Like that would I would be
Yeah.
miserable in that scenario,
That
right?
was my indication that healthcare was broken when I was going through the primary care physicians and looking at
Oh,
realizing they were running late from a different late appointment, and really they had 15 minutes with me. That was really what they had,
Mhm.
yes,
and I remember just trying to put myself in their shoes, and I thought, it takes about 45 minutes to get someone, through an entire appointment of to just even get them to really open up, honestly, from front to back, so
yes,
they're having to cram this in, an incredibly short amount of time. So I like that you called out the compassion for it. I agree, I think medicine has a long way to go, and not it's not
yeah.
necessarily the physician's fault, it's the system's fault, I
It's
think.
not. No, I completely agree. I got to that my last appointment, and by the end of it, I wasn't mad. I felt sad for
Yeah.
them, not even for me. because I could just see the stress. Like they were like and it's like as they're listening to me, I could see in their mind, they're like, okay, I got I got a patient in room 3, I got a patient in room 4. What's going on with them? How am I going to navigate that and get the doctor in
Yeah.
there? It's like, so we could talk on this for hours about healthcare in our country, right? Um,
We'll grab
but
you for
yeah,
an episode too for another date.
exactly. But no, but it's fun though. They have these oh, what do you call them? Boutique healthcare
Mhm.
places, even popping
Mhm.
up in our area. So I'm really excited about it. Just like we have a monthly membership, they have a monthly membership,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and it's more relationship driven. And so it's not that it's about an hour from us. So I'm thinking I'm gonna try our family out with something like that. I think that's more with what we're going to,
Yeah.
and so I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, John, for taking all this time with us and sharing with our listeners the tricks and the really the life experience that you've had that's led up to
Mhm.
having such a tremendous practice and team.
Thank you all. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. I love talking about this, as you can probably tell. It's we need like 3 or 4 episodes to cover it all, but either way, I'm real happy. Thanks for inviting me on.
Always. You're the best. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for joining us on Everyday Practices Dental Podcast. It would mean the world to me if you could leave us a like or a review on iTunes or go to Productive Dentist Academy through Google and leave us a review there. We are here each week to talk about what's possible when you lead your practice with clarity and courage. If you are ready to build a business that supports your life and not the other way around, investment grade practice coaching powered by Productive Dentist Academy can help. Visit investmentgradepractice.com to schedule your free 60-minute coaching session so you can start designing the practice and lifestyle you've been dreaming about all along.